All right, peace.
Man, you're a busy man, Robbie.
It was my barber because it's just the way everything's been happening has been real weird. Because I got to get ready for my show, and then I didn't. It's just been real weird. It's been real weird.
You should have just lied to us and told us it was a call for a pilot. Just that's okay.
No, no, no. I'm getting show ready, and since I'm being show ready, I have to always make sure I'm show ready. So that's just the main thing. I had to be show ready.
Well, yeah, that's your show that's coming up in Howard Hughes.
That's right.
Right. We'll plug that, especially we'll plug that now, but we'll also plug it at the end.
No, no, we'll plug it at the end. That's not a
Yeah, we'll
problem.
plug it at the end, but you already mentioned it, and you got your green screen back there. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, we just go with it, man. Here, it's nothing. It's not big enough of an audience to unfortunately not yet big enough of an audience to worry about overproducing this thing. So how are you, man?
Brother, it's an audience, period. You know that.
I
We
do.
pay. We just work.
I'm honored to have the audience. I am, but I also like to make fun of them because I don't feel like myself in case I occasionally poke fun at the 75 old ladies. There was 35 at the beginning, and now it's like 70. So yeah, man.
Dang.
How are you, sir?
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Man, this man is busy. He just got off a podcast, right? You just recorded a podcast, from what I understand, and you're coming straight to this podcast.
Sure am. Quake's House Radio Show. And now I have to do Stephen Lolli's podcast because Stephen's a good friend. So you got to do what you do for your friends. So
what an honor. What an honor. You know what's before I give you your proper introduction, what is extremely an honor is to get, and I don't know if the younger comics care, they don't seem to look at me this way, the way we looked at you guys who are a little newer. I was a little newer, but to get the respect from a comic who's been doing it as long as you, to come and do my podcast. I've had a few comics who I respect, who are like, respect me enough. So that means a lot to me, brother. So I appreciate you being here, and I'm going to give you a proper intro. And I want to say, I appreciate that you didn't give me any bullshit credits. You just came, you didn't give me any. Yeah, tell him I was on Comedy Central. Tell him BET. This dude this is his bio. Single dad, has been a stand-up for 36 years. Started at the store in 86, which we'll get into. Has opened up for famous comics and musical acts, of which he did not even name. That's how you know. And he has a monthly comedy show, 50 Shades of Funny, in LA. If you're in LA, at the Howard Hughes Center, last Tuesday of every month in the Howard Hughes Movie Theater. My very good longtime friend, Mr. Robbie Peron. Welcome to the No Idea Zone, brother.
How's it going, everybody? All the listeners.
So I want to start with your 36 years, man. I want to go back. Like, I'm always fascinated with the beginning, especially since you started in 86. And after we did DeMilitant, after we did his funeral roast, which he didn't have a funeral, he had a roast. I found out a lot about D, and I found out he basically started around the time you did at the store. And what was that like? If you can give us a little, I should have prepped you that I wanted to ask you this, but I figured you could give me some, paint that picture for us. 86, the peak of American comedy, by the way.
I'm still in with there's two groups. There's the Comedy Store's alumni group that I'm with from 72 to 72 when the Comedy Store started, all the way till, oh my goodness, 78. I'm with that alumni group, and then I'm with Mitzi's alum, everybody who was under Mitzi's reign when she was still alive at the Comedy Store. Everything about the store back then. I was a kid. I was still in high school. March 20th, 1986 is when I started. So the best thing about it was new. All these headliners, headliners now, who are major veteran comics, were grooming us. So they had, just like when I met you, we had a lot of camaraderie, amongst our peers. So we got to have these older veteran comics who had worked with Red Fox, Rodney Dangerfield, Sammy Shore, Rudy Luca, all these old famous, oh my gosh, Joy Bishop. So you had all these
Wow.
comics who worked with them were grooming us. I started as a 16-year-old kid in high school. And it was wonderful where your peers were these comics that you looked up to that have worked with Red Fox. We're on the road with these guys. And then Dice Clay, was another major influence who was there, who you can just talk to. Hey, Dice, you got some advice? Yeah, I got plenty of advice for you. It was wonderful in the heyday. So I'm still a part of those alumni groups on Facebook, and you see a lot of old faces. Great, brilliant writers that have just transitioned from stand-up to either writing gigs, producing gigs, doing big shows in Vegas. Finest Henderson, who was a great impressionist and a comedian, also a singer. Finest went on to do cruise ships and has his own show in Vegas, which is basically showcasing his music. He kind of puts stand-up to the side. He still does some shtick, but his music has been around since the 80s, recorded in albums.
What were some of those songs? See, I'm not really that familiar with him. What was some of his stuff that we might know of or know of that we heard and didn't know was him?
And unless you listen to stuff from the 80s, you wouldn't. I mean, early stuff like 81, 82. It was more pop, but two of his songs I heard, and I remember hearing them on the radio, but I couldn't tell you. If I told you now, you wouldn't know at all.
But it's fascinating. So he makes a living in Vegas. He does really well. He probably cleans up out there. And he might not be a household name, but he's still raking it in as a performer. That's really cool, man.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of your. Was Witherspoon around then, or was he earlier?
John was earlier, but I got to meet Spoon. I was 19 when I met Spoon. Very nice guy. Very nice guy. His Comedy Store buddies that he had, he was in with them. So a lot of us younger guys, he would talk to us, short conversations, and then he would just go. He would come in, hit his spots, talk. He would be at the club maybe 30, 40 minutes tops. And then he was out. He was constantly working.
He was already established by then. He didn't have to work the club anymore. He didn't have to seat people. And, she had him hosting. I think she had him working the door from the podcast that I've seen him on. I was just curious about that.
She had us all doing it. Dice Clay was a doorman. Kennison was a doorman. Dave Attell. I remember when Dave started as a doorman. Adam Sandler was a doorman at the Improv. I mean, Mitzi had a method to her madness. Mitzi Shore was brilliant. Everybody wants a stage time, but she also needed employees.
Right.
So why not have only comedians can be doormen? So if Stephen Lolli fell out of a spot, you didn't make it because you were late across town doing another gig.
Got a comic work in the club, throw him up.
I'm right there.
That was how you got it. So you worked at the store. I did not know that.
Yeah, I was a doorman. And matter of fact, I'm featured in Fat Tuesdays back when I was 22, and I'm on. You'll see me in the documentary.
Okay, I'm on episode 2 or 3. That's good. That is a good documentary.
I'm there on episode 2. You'll see Dave Chappelle talk about the situation.
Okay, in episode 2, I got to go back and watch that.
First appearance of Chappelle, Dave's first appearance, which I met Dave in '92, but I met Dave through Eddie Griffin.
Okay.
I had my own room Tuesday nights up in the belly room. Then I had Saturday nights. So Eddie and Dave were about to shoot Def Jam. This is the first year. And Eddie comes up, hey man, I need you to put up the DC Kid. I'm like, okay. So he brings him over, skinny kid with a backwards hat. And he goes, yeah, this is Dave Chappelle. Meet Dave, real cool, quiet. I said, okay, when you want me to put him up? Next. So Dave goes up, blasts the crowd, gets off. About a year later, I kept running into Dave at auditions and seeing him at around town at the clubs. Sure. Still the same nice guy. Robin Hood Men in Tights was the movie that kind of
his first break, his first traction.
Dave Chappelle, Alex Thomas, myself, and there was 2 other comics who I don't know, we were going for the callbacks, the final callbacks. And I remember I got cut real quick. And then Dave, I kind of got in by a slide. I had a Russian agent at the time, this guy, Victor Krugelov. You could tell the guy was a mobster. Yeah, you're not going to cuck around with me. I'm going to, the auditions are closed, but I'm going to get you in. I'm going to get you in today. And I'm sitting in his little office, his little rinky-dinky office. He gets on the phone. He goes, I got this kid. He's coming in to read. I don't give a shit if I don't give a shit. So what if you close off auditions? So what if it's a final callback? He's coming in an hour. He hangs up the phone. He says, you go down there and do it. Sure enough, I went in, hit the audition. Then I got a call back an hour later. And for me, nothing materialized, but they picked who they really needed to pick. Dave embodied the role.
That means Mel Brooks. So a lot of people don't know that then Mel Brooks gave Dave Chappelle his first traction, his first job that got him that traction in Hollywood. Because that was a Mel Brooks thing, wasn't it? Robin Hood Men in Tights? I think it was.
Yeah, it was. Funny guy. Mel is I got to meet Mel Brooks through the Comedy Store. I got to meet Mel Brooks, little short dude. But that
I know them well, Robbie.
Yeah, no, he's very
he's smaller than me, I know.
But that didn't impress me. Milton Berle impressed me. When I got to meet Milton Berle, shake hands and talk with him. He even punched up one of my bets.
Wow.
Milton, because Milton was somebody our parents and grandparents watched on TV. Mel, yes, but he was known better as a writer, he and Carl Reiner. But Milton Berle was this guy I thought was larger than life. And then it's Mel and Sid Caesar who are known to have gorilla-like strength.
No shit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I see this little frail man come in this Comedy Store sitting next to Mitzi, and he had a comic that he was pretty much grooming, a guy named Casanova Love, who's now a rapper.
This is Mel Brooks.
No, this is Milton Berle.
Oh, Mel Berle was a little guy.
Both of them.
But Berle was known to have like a huge cock. They said he had, you don't know that he had slept with Marilyn Monroe and all the, I mean, I don't know if these stories are true.
A lot of them I heard were true, but I know one thing, the man had gorilla-like strength.
Okay, so go ahead. How do you know that?
Well, not only the handshake that he gave me almost broke my wrist, but even in his old age, he was still really virile.
Wow.
He was a strong guy. But I went on stage before his comic, blew the guy out of the water. After that, he comes out, he talks to me, and a bunch of us are out there. And he goes, yeah, that last bit, you could have did this, this, and this. And I said, really? He said, wow. Mr. Berle goes, Mr. Berle, fuck you. It's Uncle Milty. Cool guy, really cool guy. I was fortunate, but that was all by doing comedy, for 36 years.
This is an appropriate time to mention Robbie Peron, hard act to follow. Now, I mean, I haven't had to follow you in probably 12 or 15 years, but, and I'm not saying, I wasn't like going, oh, wow, Robbie Peron. I was pissed off that that was irritating to me that I would go on and I could follow, because those were big deals for me as a white comic. Following Derek Ellis was an accomplishment. That was a big deal, because he's a killer and I admired him. And there were some other comics too that were strong. You were hard to follow, man. You were hard to follow. And I was even getting to the point where I could close shows with lesser comics on them. But this man is not an easy act to follow. I think that's a perfect segue for me to mention that. If you are, you better bring your shit, because this dude will, even when you have an average set, you might not kill it. You're hard.
Well, but it took years. And it's funny you say that, segued into that. I was at the Comedy Store one night, and as I said, you could talk to any famous comic. Dice happened to be in there one night, and I'm pacing, and he goes, what's wrong with you? I said, well, I'm trying to get my head together, I'm going up. He goes, when? I said, next. He goes, you get good like me, you follow the baddest motherfucker in the room. I said, that's great advice. He goes, I hope you take it to bed because you're following me. Dice gets on, he bumps me, he gets on, he does 45 minutes.
Oh, fuck, man.
The crowd is just in tears.
This is 80, 88, 87, 88?
No. This is 91.
Okay.
This is 91, and this is still from the rise of Dice.
He hadn't had the infamous the infamous talk show moment.
Saturday Night Live.
No. Man, I have such bad COVID fucking brain. Where he cried on late night TV with Arsenio. So he hadn't had that yet. He was still.
No, he had that. But Dice was the funny thing was with him, once he got off, he gave me like the biggest introduction. He made people sit there because they thought, you know, it was late night. They're like, he goes, you better sit in the fucking seats because this next kid is gonna blow your socks off.
Oh, see, he gave you a good intro.
He gave me the best intro, and I had nothing because I was like, oh shit. Went on stage, I said, ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause for my opening act, Andrew Dice Clay. Oh yeah. So you hear him in the back, huh? Good one. And I just.
You needed that. You needed that knockout, you needed that up front.
Yeah, but he, whether you know it or not, Andrew Dice Clay has Eddie Griffin. When Dice Clay did.
I did know that, yeah.
When he did Madison Square Garden.
He had him open up for him.
That was his opener. Eugene the Machine Levine had him open. Wills Parisi, Eric Edwards, Carlos Mencia.
Wow.
Dice had a way of grabbing a comic. If
Who
you
knew
knew
it was strong. He wanted to follow was strong.
He did, but he had a way of giving young comics a big break. So he would pay you and say, you're doing a big venue. He wouldn't have you open for him at a small comedy club. He would have you open for him at an arena. And if anyone is a Dice Clay fan, they really need to see how the guy is. The guy is a genius, certifiable genius, period, hands down. Very nice, very intelligent, proud father, excellent father, because I remember meeting his sons when they were born, when he brought Max and Dylan to the clubs to show his brothers at the Comedy Store. Very proud dad, very proud dad. Oh, and he could play the drums.
I think he's a singer too, isn't he? He can sing. I mean, I've heard him sing some. He's like a crooner. He can do that Frank Sinatra shit.
Yeah,
very talented human being. You know, honestly, Robbie, I think I was a big fan because I was like 13 or 14 when he hit. Mm-hmm. So you couldn't be a young American kid and not love Andrew Dice Clay in the late 1980s. I mean, it was just like, there's nothing more that appeals to the adolescent state of mind than Hickory Dickory Dock and the nursery rhymes and also like the super fucking alpha male 80s. You know, I'm the Italian guy who's coming to the Midwest to tell you how stupid you are. Basically, that whole attitude. But as time has gone on and the culture's gotten whiter and less masculine, let's just be straight. I think he's more important. I think he's more important now than he was then. Actually, when I see him in shit, it's like refreshing because everything is so beta now.
He's the best thing I can say about Andrew Dice Clay. Sitting and talking with him just to talk was a joy because the man was brilliant. If you had anything of political or social relevance, he would tug you for an hour. Even if he just met you, he would keep you there and say, hey, let's go over and have dinner at Mel's Diner. I'm buying, you're coming with me, because he loved intellectual conversations. But the Dice persona was just a persona. The man.
Yeah. This is why he broke down on national television.
Well, because what they did was Nora Dunn and I forget her name, Lorraine Newman said such a misogynist guy. They said he was homophobic. They said all this and that about him, which was wrong.
Yeah.
This man showed up at he probably still does it till this day. He showed up at every Pride Fest in West Hollywood since the 80s. Gay comics who invited him down, he went down there and made sure he took pictures with them because these were his friends. Misogynist? No. There are plenty of female comics he helped. Racist? Hell no. One of his son's godfathers is Eddie Griffin. Dice is an incredible individual. When I met Joey Buttafuoco, go figure.
Yeah, early to mid 90s, I'm imagining.
Yeah, Joey and his wife, Mary Jo. I met through Dice, and we were sitting outside, outside the outside bar, talking for 4 hours. Dice is an incredible individual, but following him was even more difficult. But he, as hard as he made it for you on stage, he showed you a lot of love.
Well, those boutique kind of comedians you're describing, they had ulterior motives. Not they. It's a very alpha art form, even now. I mean, people don't want to admit it, but it's a very alpha, Darwinian kind of art form stand-up, and you can't bring gentle if you're going to follow Andrew Dice Clay. Like, with all due respect to Wayne Newman, and I love Saturday Night Live, but this is very avant-garde, gentle comedy compared to something like stand-up comedy in the 80s and Dice. And I know because I was on Pepitone's, I was Pepitone's co-host for 2 years. So a lot of those alternative comics came through. And there was one in particular whose name I won't mention, who just absolutely despised Andrew Dice Clay because she hated having to go on in the room after that energy. And I don't mean follow him. I mean go on even a few after. And yeah, so I'm sure there were ulterior motives for you want to pin racist and sexist and homophobic, but really you're struggling to bring something that could follow somebody, and it's just some bitterness there.
Yeah, but you have remember Dice had to go against Sam Kinison back in the day. Dice was he was a doorman and he still did spots. Kinison, and I was a 17-year-old kid when I met Kinison. Kinison didn't give him his due because Kinison was he was up there. He was already skyrocketing in his career. Funny comic. But there was just something he didn't like about Dice.
They were competitive, brother. It was just competitiveness.
No, there was no competitive. There's a changing of the guard. It's a changing of the guard. When the old lion dies, he goes and dies somewhere alone, unless there's a young lion that rips from the shreds and leaves a movement. Dice was on his way up, just as Kinison was. Two different types of comics, two different styles. Yeah. But this young guy, he's going to be popular.
He was a little bit, he was a little better looking then. Kinison might not like a guy who's young and good looking, and Dice he had all his hair, and he was a good looking young cat. And the girls are going to fuck Dice before they fuck Kinison, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I took me years to figure out when I was in my early 20s that sometimes those club owners didn't want to book me because I was a young, cute guy, and I was going to get the pussy that they weren't going to get.
Yep.
So there's some of that too. Pryor hated people. We don't even know why. Pryor hated Chevy Chase. He fucking hated him, and nobody ever got an explanation for that. So that's all I'm saying. I'm just putting it out.
Some things are personal. It's like back in the day when you would hit a lot of black clubs, you were so fearless because you said, I'm coming to get stage time. I don't care what club it is. It's a club. And the respect you garnered from everyone is because you came in there with brilliant original material. You weren't afraid to do it. And you're quite funny. So that helps. But your fearlessness brought back the old days of comics who said, I don't care, black, white, Mexican, I don't care. I'm just going because I want stage time. And that's what you did. You were religiously at every club, no matter what it is, to get off your jokes. And you did. And that's the old stuff that Dice and everyone else was doing.
Well, first of all, I appreciate that. Thank you for saying that. That means a lot to me. You can never hear that enough. And we never hear that enough. So I appreciate you saying that. I went, unbeknown to a lot of people, I went through a transition when I got into black clubs where I became that way. I did not walk into a club. I'm not saying that wasn't part of my makeup or my personality, but there was a fork in the road being a white comic, as you can imagine, where you have options that a black comic doesn't have. And I was invited to play those alternative comedy places. I was invited. I showed up at the Largo and I showed up where the people who know how to eat with the salad fork and have the manicures and shit you know, where the super white, extreme white places are. And I was told like, this is the way into TV. And I went to those places, even the Hollywood Improv, you know, which was very alternative-y then, early 2000s. And I had a choice to make. So I could hang out. First of all, I could hang out and not perform.
Yep.
That was the main thing. Or, you know, Bo P and Bobby Law were like, you're funny. You can do stand-up down here. But I was afraid. I was afraid. I'm appreciate that you say I wasn't afraid. And I'm glad you look at me that way. But there was definitely a period of about 6 months to a year where I was, and you know, I shouldn't even admit that. I should just let people think he's fearless. And there was,
but how? You would come by yourself with no problems. Oh my God.
I did good. I did good. I did good. And I did have good spots. Also, you know, Black comics they put me in a position to succeed. Whereas a white room, they wouldn't always care about that. And so whatever people think about race, I was treated very, very well in those Black rooms, the family room, to Mixed Nuts, to not the one on Pico, but all the other ones.
One on Washington, yeah, the one on Washington. But you went to the family room in the hood.
Yeah.
Woo! Yeah, that was a dangerous area.
But you know what? When I would go in there, Bobby or Ramona or whoever was hosting, they would give me that intro that Dice gave you.
Yeah.
And so they made the audience feel that I was good and they cared. And that meant a lot, man. That meant a lot. I don't know. Oh, I want to ask you this. Did you split time between the Comedy Act Theater and were you in with the Comedy Act Theater and the store? Were you going back and forth? Tell me a little bit about that.
All of them. Mitzi had a long-standing rule, and it was, as Comedy Store comics, she never wanted us to play at the Improv. So the Laugh Factory was cool. The LA Cabaret, which was in Encino off Balboa, that was cool. And the Comedy Act Theater was cool. Oh, and Pips, which was on Tennessee Place off Pico, way in West LA. So all those we got to go.
It was just the store and the Improv that had that rule that you were
just Mitzi had that rule.
Oh, so Bud didn't even care.
I didn't deal with Bud till 97. I dealt with, and this is the funny part, not to get off the Comedy Act, the funny part was Bud's son, Ross Mark. I got in through Ross Mark and his sister Zoe.
Okay.
Mark Lano caught wind of it. They had a Santa Monica Improv.
Right. This is still the 80s, early 90s.
Yeah. When the big earthquake happened in 94, that was the end of the Santa Monica Improv, because it was you had to go out, you had the regular bar and restaurant, they had an annex room up top, then you went outside, went down like a little U-turn, went to the stairs, and in the basement was the main room. So during the earthquake, boom, it just went down and sunk in. AJ Jamal, another funny comic, clean comic. I just came to hang out. Comic didn't show up, he puts me up. He goes, yeah, this is Herbie Quinones. I knew Herbie from New York, but Herbie wasn't in town.
I thought he called you up. I thought you were saying
he did. He introduced me as Herbie because Herbie wasn't in town. Herbie was supposed to be in town. He's a New York comic, but Herbie wasn't there. So he put me in Herbie's place.
Yeah, you got to tell us this story.
Ross was in the back of the room. We all didn't know. So Ross looked, as soon as I came up, he goes, you're not Herbie. And I said, yeah, I know. And he goes, but you're funny. He goes, call Zoe and we'll get you some bookings. Called Zoe on a Tuesday for my avails. Zoe booked me. Mark Lano, Bud's partner, Mark Lano seen me. When I got off stage, he goes, you're not a regular. You haven't even been through New Faces. I don't know you.
Oh, man. So there was a little power struggle going on. Even in the inner workings of the Improv, there was a little power. People don't realize.
Yeah.
They think you're in with one person, you're in with everyone. It's not necessarily true. People out
there. They slid me under the radar because they were young. What Mark did was he put me on New Faces a month later.
I see.
Did New Faces, blasted it, and then he put me on a showcase for CBS TV.
Okay.
And Mark Lano taught me a very valuable lesson, and we still talk every once in a while. I showed up late, and he had me on as the second comic. He was pissed. He put me up dead last because I was late. After that, he's talking to me like I'm his child. He goes, "Do you know why I put you up last?" I said, "Because old lady." Goes, "No, because you weren't professional. I had CBS here waiting for you."
Wow.
I didn't know.
Well, yeah, but you should still be always on time for your.
I'm 30 minutes early everywhere, and I've been like that since. And
so that was you thank God that happened then and not later.
Mark gave me a professional wake-up call, and then he still put me on more showcases. By the time I dealt with Bud was like the show face of the improv. I dealt with Bud because I was going on before Damon Wayans, and I didn't know Damon was in the room.
Oh man.
And so Damon I already knew from the Comedy Store when I was 17. Bud gave me a great intro. I mean, he exited me off the stage really good, gave Damon a great intro, pulls me to the side, and he goes, "You need to call for spots. Call my daughter Zoe." I got
Shit, dude. That's like trying to get fucking Medicare. It's like calling up the government and trying to get some kind of calling the IRS. Like it's like a bureaucracy. They cycle you back from one to the other.
But it was a good thing. So by the time I bounced between the Comedy Store and improv, the Comedy Act Theater was where I went to get funny and for a more aggressive audience. Thursday.
How did Robin treat you really quick when you were at the Comedy Act?
He didn't. I had got in right before he died, and I wasn't really getting on stage because Robin, great guy, but after the comics went on and Robin would do his hour, there was no time. And he was very, generous to all those young comics. But the funny thing was he was a family man. He got off stage, he went home. That was it.
It was his show too. It was his show.
Yeah. And Michael Williams, who's the owner of the Comedy Act Theater, Michael pulls me aside some years later, and he's watching my set, and he goes, "You think you're bombing, don't you?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "No." He says, "People are listening. You're running into your next joke, not even segueing.
You're too fast."
You're too fast. You think you're bombing. Slow down. They're listening." Took his advice, slowed down, bam.
Man, that's something that takes so many years to master, doing that, because you get into that energy of going fast and hard, and it works too. It works, and then but that was good. Michael's such a great guy, man. What a great comedy club owner to take the care to tell you, to kind of calibrate you.
Michael did more than that. He had the Comedy Act Theater Players, which was an improv group.
No shit, I never heard about them.
Yeah, the Cat Players. And the second incarnation of them I was in. He had us at his house for rehearsals. We would be at his house in Inglewood for rehearsals. And if we wanted something to drink or something to eat, we'd ask Michael. Michael goes, "This is your house. Go get you something to eat." Michael was so gracious, but he was so on point. And he would have us at the beginning of the show do improv. And we would do improv sketches in front of the crowd, and then he would cut us after 30 minutes and then have the regular show. And oh my God, I almost forgot, Jamie Kennedy would be down there religiously getting on stage.
Jamie Kennedy
Yeah.
was starting in black comedy clubs.
Yeah.
That's impressive. That's impressive. I didn't know that.
Yeah, Jamie Kennedy would be down there. He would be down there, and he bombed a lot, but he would be there all the time.
Man, let me tell you, I did stand up for 5 years. I even featured on the road before I came to LA and then in a black comedy club. I didn't just start at Mixed Nuts. So that is a level of bravery that is beyond, like there's another guy, John Gold. Remember John Gold?
I remember John.
John is still around. He started at Mixed Nuts. He would get booed off and bomb, and oh man, they bomb, they heckle what he was wearing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "John, why did you could have gone to the Improv and hung out? You could have gone done open mics in Hollywood, and it would have gone smoother than that." But yeah, that's crazy, man.
No, it's to get your teeth. You deal with the hardest crowds, you can win them over. It's just like a New York mentality. New York, you know how New York crowds are. New
They're the
York crowds,
best, by the way.
yeah,
They're the
they
best.
are very, very sophisticated, very intellectual, but you're not going to slide by them with bullshit. So you have to be really savvy with New York audiences. So that's what you want. You want that hardcore East Coast feel,
Right.
instead of an easy crowd. We all knew that the Comedy Store is where you could be funny. Improv is if you're ready for TV, because A&E's Evening of the Improv. Laugh Factory was the easiest rooms. But
And
if
the
you
Ice
really,
House. I don't know if that was around then.
and the Ice House was too back in the day. But then if you wanted to challenge yourself, Comedy Act Theater,
Right.
nuts. Oh my God, there's a Latino room where people got beat up. Tequila, yeah.
What was
Yeah.
that? Can you remember that room?
Oh my God, Tequila's had this big Samoan bouncer, and it was in all.
It was
It was
called
in all.
Tequilas.
It was in a heavily Latino part of town. It was in East LA.
Which is now
Yeah.
whiter than Donald Trump's ass in the wintertime, by the way.
No.
Oh, East LA, Echo Park is white as fuck now.
Well, Echo Park, yes, but no. This is off
I mean,
of
East.
Atlantic and Garfield.
Okay, closer to downtown.
Yeah, this is Atlantic and Garfield, which was real hood. So the room would be, if you were funny, they would laugh, you got paid. If you bombed, someone from the audience would kick your ass.
Ah, that's what a room should be.
And it was hilarious.
Was that the hardest room you ever played? Or were there, give me some rooms if you can, like the roughest rooms you ever played.
That was one of them. Club 88 was the same way. It was a rough room where either you performed Keith Morris's room. It was off Manchester and Western. Either you were funny or you got beat up. Oh my God.
And that would stop a lot of people from getting into comedy who didn't need to nowadays. We don't have rooms like that anymore.
No, we just don't have any. We don't have a plethora of comedy rooms like we used to. There was, okay, on Sunset and Poinsettia, there was the Denny's, which is now Bossa Nova. That was rock and roll Denny's. In the
I remember
back.
that. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right by where the freeway, there's a freeway 101.
No,
101.
Poinsettia is, you have La Brea, and then going west 6 blocks is Poinsettia.
Oh, I see. Closer toward the Laugh Factory.
Yes, yeah, going towards Laugh Factory to the west end. So there's a Ralph's, and then a couple of clicks over, there's a restaurant now called Bossa Nova. It was
the Denny's. Right.
And in the back of the Denny's, they had a back dining room where they had comedy. Then you had the Holiday Inn on Highland, right past Hollywood and Highland. There was one right before you got on the 101. That Holiday Inn had comedy night there too.
Okay. Was that also a rough place?
Yeah, because some of those rockers would be, no, the tourists would be really drunk and they would want to fight. So there were some pretty rooms and pretty bad rooms in Hollywood where you can get hurt. You'd lose your teeth, or lose some skin.
Yeah, you better run out of there if you don't have a good set.
I don't run from anything.
Well, I would. I would run the fuck out of there.
A fight is a fight. A fight is a fight. Trust me. You're a little shorter. You're a little shorter than Martin Lawrence, and Martin Lawrence got some fast hands.
I heard Martin Lawrence knocked out at the Comedy Act Theater. Someone was telling me he knocked somebody out.
Yeah. I was there.
I mean, I can handle myself, but I don't really prefer to do that. I'm coming in thinking I might get laid, not walking out thinking I might get laid out.
No, but it's not even that. It's just, my thing has always been, a fight is a fight. You win some, you lose some. But the main thing is, I'm going to get to my car so I can go home. Right.
That's a survival. And you know what? That's what a lot of those hood rooms was, I need to survive this. The Hawks 99er, Derek Ellis's spot, Hawks 99er. I don't know if you ever played that one for a while. And the family room was a rough spot too.
Yeah, the whole area.
Where?
The whole area was rough.
The whole area it was gangland. Yeah. Yeah. It was.
See, you went to all the hard rooms, and you pulled out funny from these hard rooms. A lot of rooms, a lot of Black comics were afraid of going to. You still went and you pulled out funny. So when you do rooms like that, these hardcore rooms, and you get big laughs, you can go anywhere, and which you did, because you went anywhere because you could be. You already had your proving grounds at hard ass rooms.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you've been to a dangerous neighborhood and a dangerous crowd, what can Westwood or Brentwood do to you?
It's a different kind of, the white hostility is passive aggressive. So they just, you know, it's a different thing. But I think the thing for me is just to be, I didn't care what the white, I was like, you know, I came up watching Raw and watching Pryor and Red Fox. My formative years were pre-Def Jam, right? Yeah. So Pryor and Eddie, Raw, Delirious, even Robin to a certain degree, because we had Do the Right Thing. You know, white people knew Robin from House Party and Do the Right Thing and Bebe's Kids. Yeah. We didn't know his stand-up necessarily. So him and
what about Carlin?
Yeah, but I didn't want to be George Carlin because he was my dad. He looked like my dad. I wanted to be Eddie Murphy. I wanted to be at 15. I wanted to be Eddie Murphy. George Carlin had a major influence on me. You can tell from watching my stand-up that obviously he had a major influence on me. But I think what the Black Clubs did was they made me less afraid to say dangerous things because I was surviving and being funny in dangerous places. I was less afraid to say dangerous things. And I certainly wasn't afraid of what white people thought because I looked up to Black comics, you know. My identity was formed by 75% were Black comics. I wasn't even as big of a fan of Kinnison as I was of Murphy and Eddie and Pryor and, you know, so, and even Damon Wayans too is another one can't forget. So yeah, that's why. Because I was like, well, if these motherfuckers like me, what do I give a shit what these corny, and Hollywood is super corny, man. Like the white comics don't want to say that because, you know, you want the Hollywood people to like you. But anyway, it just gave me a little bit of I don't give a fuck. That's what it did.
But once again, it's just like with Carlin. Carlin it was good to see him and listen to his albums. When I met him and got to talk to him over months of time, you get to see this guy looking at these young comics, which we were, and they saw themselves in us. And I've been to some of the most lily white rooms and the most hardcore ghetto rooms, Black, Hispanic, Filipino, all through the city. One thing that got me was few of the rooms that we can go to. I did a show at a place called the Coach House. No, Galaxy Theater, which is in oh my gosh, Westminster. It's in between Orange County and LA. It's right at the halfway mark. Gabriel Iglesias was on stage. This is right before Fluffy really took off.
Early 2000s.
Yeah, love Gabriel. He's a good friend. What ended up happening was I went on right before Gabriel. There's two other comics that went on before me. I destroyed all white crowd. In the front, 4 white people, didn't laugh at all. Stone-faced. And I looked down and I said, you guys aren't laughing. Lady goes, you're not funny. I don't think you're funny. Now the whole crowd sort of boo, boo. I said, no. They're open to their own opinion. I said, but I bet you next time I'll be able to make you laugh because that makes me try harder. Now I could have went,
you could have attacked them. You could have.
I could have went in on it, but that's cheap. End up seeing them a year later, and they laughed at everything. But you can't please everybody. They weren't into Black comics. They were there to see Gabriel Iglesias. It doesn't make a difference. They were there to see Gabe for one thing. They couldn't relate to my material. They didn't think I was funny, and that's okay. But that makes me as a comic, I have to work harder. I have to make something more relatable because once again, where they're living was, what is it? Palos Verdes, which is uber rich, where Spielberg, Whoopi Goldberg live, which is very rich. Mm-hmm. You don't see that type of wealth coming down to the slummy area just to see a comic.
Right.
Give a shit what I don't give a shit what I think. Well, they're just, hey, we're here to see him. We spent our money. We're up front. We have our bottle of Vouv. We just want to enjoy.
If they hadn't been up front, it wouldn't have mattered. But when they're right up front, they're looking right at you. It's hard to resist the temptation to engage, but you did it in like a way I might not have done it. Depends how comfortable, depends how good a day I was having, I want to remind you of something you said to me outside Mixed Nuts. Mm-hmm. Oh man, I have some good ones, man. I don't know if I should share these, but I'll share one, and we do another podcast. I'll pull out the other one, other memory I have. But outside Mixed Nuts, and you've mellowed out. You were in a salty mood that night, and
yeah, I mellowed.
You've mellowed out. You mellowed out a bit. I have too. But you said, something, I'm going to paraphrase it because I can't remember exactly, but you were like, this American comedy's dead, and George Carlin is the only one left carrying the torch. Mm. Use those words. The only one left carrying the torch. This was probably 2005, 2004. And speaking of Carlin, I didn't want to forget that because I have that vivid memory of you. And when I met Kat, who gave me helped me and gave me my break, he wanted me to know his favorite comedian was George Carlin. He wanted, my favorite comedian is not Richard Pryor. It's George. I love Richard, but he wanted me to know that George Carlin was his favorite comedian. And how can you not? I mean, how can you not admire that guy? He never got complacent. Mm-mm. And he always was wanting to say shit that nobody else would say. Yep. And I always say, Robbie, he was Lenny Bruce's revenge.
Another great comic. Unfortunately, once again, when Carlin did something a lot of people didn't. And once again, when he died, the torch was gone. What Richard Pryor stood for, that's their generation. These are peers. Richard went into one direction with the films and everything he was doing to make money. Carlin stayed the course, which Carlin could have transitioned because he was already transitioning into television and film. But he was so much for the people, like Dick Gregory. There you go.
Indeed.
He and Dick mirrored on the people, homelessness, suicide, mental health. They both mirrored that of real problems and afflictions that we have as Americans, and how the government just doesn't care about the common man. So Carlin still had that radical brilliance from the 60s carried all the way up until he passed. And we needed that. We needed another Lenny Bruce, another Bill Hicks. We needed that.
Not easy shit to make funny. I mean, not easy to go on stage in front of people who came to buy drinks and laugh and escape their problems. And you're going to go on. You're going to go on and remind them that shit's all fucked up. There's no hope. Nobody cares. And you got to make that funny. I mean, that's why it's a small fraternity of people,
It's a brilliance. I mean, you are very brilliant as a comic. You were very brilliant on stage. And the same things with Carlin, Eddie Griffin, Cat Williams.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Dave.
Well, Dave too, but he's a little different. Dave is dipping more into it now. Billy Gardell. Billy, who's on Bob and Abishola.
Yeah, I know who he is, but I've honestly never seen him live. But great comedian.
Great comedian, great guy, good friend. Billy would always bring the common man in his act. And he would always say how, growing up, we got our asses kicked. Your dad busted it. Billy would just bring realism to it. We may not have laughed at how we were raised, but it's funny that someone can recognize that we had a traumatic childhood, but it reared us into being respectful people. So you have comics like that who are on the same vein as Carlin. that show that brilliance, but they do it and weave it in such a way where it expands our mind. Remember, in all this society of COVID, of we're broke, we're trying to survive, you have people who always awaken you. And a lot of comics have to awaken you. Some do, some don't. And that's where Carlin, Cat, especially Cat, Eddie Griffin, Paul Mooney, late great
Paul Mooney, absolutely is.
Yeah. And
Eddie, I mean, you know, when Eddie Murphy, you know, people don't give him the credit maybe he deserves because it's been so long since he put out. But, you know, when he went after Bill Cosby in the 1980s in Raw, that was a major thing for a kid who was growing up in a very white neighborhood watching the Cosby Show, and to watch this young dude who didn't look like your uncle, he didn't reflect your uncle or your father, grandfather, you, me, related to him as yourself, and to watch him go after the top guy, not because he was a pervert, because he was fucking with him.
Yeah.
And there was something really important about that to me. It might not reflect, like, that's a 10-minute bit that that's a fucking 10-minute piece in that concert where he does Pryor and he does Cosby.
Bill Cosby, yeah.
Yeah. And it's fucking raises the hair on my neck just thinking about it, how incredible that was. Now, I mean, you know, there's a lot, I understand that difference, but like when I go into a comedy club and I'm on the road, let's say, I realize I want to be silly and funny and fun. You know, I know that about 15 of that 45 minutes is going to be edgy and dark and disturbing and going to get groans and people staring. But that 15 minutes, that's going to be like that. That's what I'm growing. That's the like little seedling that I'm growing. And the rest of the other 30, the other 30 is what I couch it with so that they want to ask me back. You know, they're going to buy a ticket again. Like even when you watch Carlin, he's not doing straight commentary through the whole thing. He does about 20 minutes. He does silly shit that's not irreverent. It's just silly. And he couches it with serious shit. So it's just crazy, man. That's a beautiful conversation, Robbie.
Thank you. I just got to see it in 36 years. I've been blessed with seeing and knowing some great comics. I was blessed with seeing and knowing Bob Saget, Jim Carrey, early in my career. Oh my God, Louis Anderson. And we used to make jokes at the Comedy Store. We would say that if Mitzi Shore, Louis Anderson, and Roseanne Barr were all sitting at the same table, you wouldn't know who's talking. Because their voices sound the same.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Hilarious.
That is fucking hilarious, man. Wow.
It's the truth. If you ever listen to their voices.
Yeah, I never put that together. Did you ever catch them all together at one time? Or
either Mitzi and Louis or Mitzi and Roseanne. Roseanne.
That was Roseanne. That was Mitzi's baby, Roseanne, right? She loved her. No, that's what I've heard.
Mitzi loved Roseanne, but Roseanne gave back. There are a few comics, my mentor being one, that she not only hired as writers on her show, she hired them to do other odd jobs. This whole thing about a racist rant or whatever it is, that was a personal dig at a person. And that's only my opinion. You can only say certain things to certain people about certain people.
Yeah.
With such venom if you know them. You don't make broad statements having that much venom. This was a personal issue.
You know, man, I think this is a kidney stone. It's a cultural kidney stone. It has to pass. It just has to pass on its own. All of this stuff, not just Roseanne, but the Joe Rogan thing, you know, all of it. Just like you said, you got to know somebody. I just keep my mouth shut because I don't know any of these people, you know. But what do you make of that situation? Do you know Joe, and can you speak on him?
I met Joe back in the day, and every time I've run into Joe, he's been the same consistent, kind person, period. Always hellos and handshakes and hugs, you know. But this thing that's going on about clips in the media over his stand-up.
I think it's his podcast, actually.
Well, no. Well, the podcast is one thing, but I've seen clips where people were they were splicing the clips of his stand-up from the early 90s and 2000s. And
oh, see, I hadn't even heard about that.
Oh yeah, saying the N-word on this, and and this is in his stand-up act. There's a lot of things I can say about a lot of comics, but Joe Rogan's on the road with Dave Chappelle and Donnell Rawlings. Joe Rogan was close friends with Carlos Mencia and other comics
before
all this. But what was in his act is nothing different than what Sarah Silverman was saying in her act. Chelsea Handler, Elijah Schlesinger. And remember, as a Black comic, being in the back of the room when they didn't notice there was a Black comic in the room, they said the same things to get laughs. So it's the go-to joke. It's always a go-to, a default when you're bombing to use the N-word or do something edgy. With Joe, you gotta watch some of the stand-up and make
I don't know what rooms they came up in, but growing up at all, if you drop that word, you better be ready to have your ass kicked.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I can't speak to that, Joe, because I didn't grow up in. He's a generation older than me. Maybe it was more acceptable for white, but in the 1980s, being a kid, you got your ass kicked. So I don't know about that, but it's interesting because it makes it sound like those comics, like those female comics you mentioned, may not have been in rooms where it was a threat to them.
Improv wasn't a threat. It was at the Hollywood Improv. But once again, with Rogan and what he said, I wasn't there, so I really couldn't tell you. It's just the internet is the internet. And whatever they're bringing up, it's not canceling his show. Spotify is still keeping him on and everything else.
Well, even if Spotify were to get rid of him, he could still go back and make a fortune on YouTube. I mean, it's like, it doesn't make any sense to say, I guess it's symbolic, remove him from this platform, but he has a massive audience that those other comics you mentioned don't have. So maybe it's something about a power thing more than anything. I mean, I don't know. I don't understand the culture of punishment that we're in, that we want everybody to be punished. And I'm not saying I don't get upset by people doing shit and saying shit, but I don't know that I feel like maybe I'm getting laid often enough. I don't feel like I need people to see people punished for shit.
I'm wondering why now? Why would they bring up this about him now? This could have been brought up when he was doing Fear Factor, because those stand-up clips were pretty much relevant while he was doing Fear Factor.
Right.
He was doing UFC while he was on news radio. There could have been many times it would have been brought up, but why now?
Well, the internet is a much easier place to put stuff for John Q. Public than at that time. Internet wasn't like what it is now. So there's that. But it is good to sit back and think about things, to kind of meditate on it and not react right away. But I have comics I really respect who really hate him now. And
hey, Joe?
Yeah, I see it. I see it on social media. I just thought I would get your opinion on it, man.
He's to me, he's a cool dude. Every time we run into each other, I remember when he first came to LA from back east. Cool dude. But I always hung out by myself. I had no issues with the guy. There's nobody I knew who had really issues with the guy. Even with the alleged argument with Carlos Mencia, this was just a discussion on stage. And even then it wasn't heated enough where there was a fight. It was just two intelligent comics
having it out.
in front of an audience. So, like I said, my thing once again is the guy's always been cool with me. You know, what he does on the stage is his business. He has to answer to the audience and the court of public opinion, not mine. I don't have an opinion because it doesn't affect me either way. It doesn't, you know, doesn't pay my rent.
One thing that I will say about this new time, this technology, this generation, because it's about 10 years. It's about 10 years or so that we've had now this information ability for everybody to be on a comment board. A little more, but still, you know, we had more power with stand up before, and there was more power to walk into a public place and be able to exhibit a talent. And now there's another forum. It has different rules and it has different variables. And it's part of, I think, as comics, adjustment for comics to realize that you have to be able to navigate that world, as well as not just bring heat on stage, but you have to be able to deal with that world as well. And that, to me, is what this all reflects, you know, all of this, Roseanne and whoever is under the microscope these days, you know. So
well, I'm in my 50s. And even now, I grew up the way people spoke their mind. A lot of people who were prejudiced, you knew they were prejudiced because they were upfront about their prejudice and their racism. And with that, you knew how to navigate. They knew not to mess with you on a certain thing. You knew not to mess with them on a certain thing. There was a kid, Tony Manaloni. Once a year, we would get into a fight. And this is before high school. And every year I'd kick his ass because he would say the N-word. And I remember one year he said it in front of his dad, kicked the shit out of him. And the bus stop for a school bus is right in front of his house. And he's like, kick that N-word, kick his butt, boy. Beat his ass even more. Happened to rain once. And it was raining right there in front of his house. Dad opens the door. What are you doing out there, boy? Get your ass up in this house. It's raining out there. Pulls me in. I'm trying to stand on the threshold over his honor. He's like, no, you get in the house and you get warm. You hear me? Just kicked your son's ass about a few months ago. And I'm standing here. But we knew that his dad was a redneck. We knew his dad was prejudiced. But
his dad still didn't want you to stand out in the rain.
No, a kid was a kid. Doesn't matter. This is what two little boys do. I'm not going to, and whatever he did and said to other adults, that was his business. He had to reckon with them. Right. But we just had a different type of rules where you didn't hurt children. You didn't curse out children. If I had a problem with your child, I'm bringing it to you, not the child. So we have a whole different decorum that is non-existent. This cancel culture. I don't like you, Steve, and I'm going to cancel your show. For what? Because you said something I don't agree with? Come on, man. Take my thumb out of my ass and just get it straight, man.
Yeah.
You know, people want to have too much opinion on your business.
Well, I think it's all a reflection of people just not fucking enough. That's my opinion on the whole thing. That's true. Not as much fucking going on. Not as much fucking. The guy who's
getting laid regularly.
Nobody can carry around that level of contempt for other people if they're getting laid regularly. And what I mean by regular, I mean twice a week. That's regular. Woo! Well, you know, how about 3 times a month? That's good. 3 times a month by different people.
I don't do those things anymore. I'm a nice, respectable guy.
Yeah, you had your time.
Oh yeah.
You had your time. I will save those memories also for another. Those are memories of being outside the comedy club. My friend, thank you for joining me. This has been great. I think we went over an hour a little bit.
Oh yeah.
But I want you to really quickly give me all your social media, or your main social media platform you use, the address, where to find you, and anything you have coming up you want people to know about.
Certainly. My social media is Rob Peron, ROBBPERON. That's on all platforms. and I have a comedy group called 50 Shades of Funny. Aha!
That's it right there. Perfect.
And I have a monthly comedy series, which is entitled 50 Shades of Funny. So I have a show Tuesday night, the 22nd, and it starts at 8 o'clock. Tickets are only $20. You can go on eventbrite.com and the number 50 Shades of Funny. Big shout out to Miss T. Perkins, who's been doing a lot of promoting for me. She's been helping out, and I'm really appreciative to her. So I'm just grateful that my monthly comedy series brings a lot of veteran comics and one or two new comics. This month's show was Shang, a good veteran, Maestro Clark, a veteran, both from BET's Comic View and Def Comedy Jam, John C. Dixon, Precious Hall, Keith Morris, and DJ Ron C., local favorite DJ. This guy's phenomenal. We do the Batman and Robin. He's on the mic, I'm on the mic, and he's on the wheels.
That's a
So
real
come on
comedy
down, get a
show.
great laugh.
That's a
20
real
bucks.
comedy show, people, like produced and put together, not something that's in the back of a Denny's.
No, it's at the Howard Hughes in Culver City. So I'm
In
at
the
the
movie
Howard
theater.
Hughes movie theater. In a
Right.
big plush movie theater, big plush seats,
Comfortable.
and there's a bar.
Shh.
So
Doesn't
you can
get any
drink
better.
and bring it into the theater. So it's pretty good. It's at the Howard Hughes.
What's your main social media you use, like your Instagram or wherever you want people?
Rob Peron, ROBBPERON, and that's anywhere. Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat. What is that new one? TikTok.
TikTok. Oh shit. I guess I gotta get on there. All
Yeah.
right. Well, man, I appreciate this. Is enlightening conversation. And we'll be out. This will be out in a couple weeks. So I will give it to you when it's out and we'll promote it and get everybody to see it.
All right. All right, Stephen. Thanks again. The next show is going to be March 29th. Same place to get tickets, eventbrite.com.
March 29th. Okay. We'll see you there. All right. Thanks, Rob.
All right, brother. Good to see you, Stephen. Thanks.
You too. God bless you.
Hey everybody, I hope you enjoyed whatever you saw on our channel today. Make sure to like, comment, and share everything you see here, and please hit that big red subscribe button. You have no idea how much it helps the No Idea Zone every time you hit that button. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next installment of the No Idea Zone.